So I had a couple of big events last week, and I wanted to share some of my experiences with you. Last Tuesday, I interviewed Milo Yiannopoulos as part of his Dangerous Faggot tour. Yes, everyone's favorite gay, bleached, blonde, British conservative and I did an hour-long sit-down in front of about 400 students at UCLA. Several hundred more showed up but couldn't get in, and there were about 100 student protesters outside. Now, as I've said dozens of times, you should use your free speech to counter speech you don't like. This means that in and of itself, the people who came to protest Milo in this event were doing the most American thing you can do, exercising their right to free speech by countering speech they didn't like with use of their own. The problem here was that many of the protesters weren't there to voice protest. They were there to actually stop people from entering the venue, toss garbage cans, spit on people, call in bomb threats, and more. A group of these protesters created a human wall to stop people from getting inside. Apparently, they're opposed to Trump building a wall, but not opposed to building one themselves. These protesters, all basically college-age kids, were screaming in the faces of cops who did an incredibly remarkable job of staying calm and collected. People were smashing on the doors of the building and trying to force their way into the room where we were speaking. It was pandemonium, but the exact type of pandemonium that has become totally acceptable on today's left. And by the way, to be absolutely clear, these liberal protesters are not embracing true liberal ideas in any way. Liberals should welcome debate and should be open to critical thought and reasoning. These people had their minds made up before they even heard what Milo was going to say. He was the enemy, he was a hateful, sexist, racist bigot, and his right to free speech was squashed by their right to be immature children. It was clear that some of them didn't even know who Milo was, but had succumbed to groupthink, which had made them feel like they were part of something instead of really standing for something. Once the event actually started, Milo and I had a wide-ranging discussion on many hot-button issues, from feminism to free speech to the rise of Trump. The audience was filled with people of every color, sexuality, and walk of life. At one point, two protesters who managed to get inside started screaming and interrupting our productive conversation. I explained to the protester that Milo would probably welcome some discussion if she wanted to wait for the Q&A at the end, but she just didn't want to do that. Instead, when pressed on what she doesn't like about Milo, she simply screamed, "I hate you!" It was exactly the type of typical response that's based on emotion, not logic, and is utterly useless in the real world. We had an interesting, honest discussion and agreed to disagree on a couple of points, such as Milo's casual dismissal of trans rights. Even though we were rushed out after the Q&A due to a bomb threat, the night was a total success because two people who don't agree on everything had a civil and, perhaps more importantly, an enjoyable conversation. Actually, the most inspiring part of seeing so many people exercise their right to free speech was the amount of people who came up to me after to tell me that they were actually liberals who've seen the growing regressive attitudes on the left. A few people told me that they agree with Trump on almost nothing, but felt that voting for him was the only way to break this backwards, illiberal ideology. This is true confirmation of what I've been saying for months. If the left won't deal with issues like immigration and Islamism honestly, they'll hand voters right over to Donald Trump. A couple weeks ago, Bill Maher, who I agree with on almost everything, did a piece on Real Time about how the rise of Trump has nothing to do with the left and that his popularity is only a creation of the right. While I totally disagree with him on this, note how I can disagree with him without slandering him. See, it's not that hard. After the event with Milo, I headed to Washington, D.C. for the Reason Rally, where I spoke at the National Mall in front of thousands alongside Bill Nye, Penn Jillette, and my friends Kelly Carlin and Paul Provenza. We talked about the need to have science and reason be reinserted in our public policy. I spent most of my speech talking about the free exchange of ideas and how we, as free thinkers, must be more tolerant than the people who would silence us. While I saw plenty of tweets saying that the event had been taken over by social justice warriors, I just didn't see anyone shout down anybody or silence anyone for sharing their views. What I did see was a great mix of people sharing ideas on how to make the country a more reasonable republic. Throughout the weekend, I met tons of people who watched this show and, much like the Milo fans I mentioned, see the ideas of illiberalism growing on the left. Also, like the Milo event, the people at the Reason rally were from every walk of life imaginable. And that's when something really big hit me. We are officially, without question, onto something massive here. Something that sparked in my head after that fateful battle between Ben Affleck and Sam Harris and continued through Charlie Hebdo and now our election season has sparked in so many of your heads as well. Some of you beat me to the punch and some of you are just coming around now. That's exactly what it's all about. Ideas out there in the ether to be picked up by us when we're ready to accept them. I've sensed this awakening for a while now and I've seen it grow and take form, but right this very moment, we are on the precipice of a legitimate movement. The ideas of true, honest debate and discussion and fact-based reason are crossing the political divide in a way nothing else is doing right now. It may not translate into this election the way we want it to, or it may not stop regressive attitudes from continuing to corrupt young minds tomorrow, but I have no doubt that this game is on. Some Trump supporters see it, some liberals see it, I see it, and you see it. It's too late to be silenced by those who won't let you speak up in the first place. All of us who have been abandoned by the extremes on both sides are coming together in a whole new way. I'm incredibly proud to say that I think we've had a little something to do with a movement that is going to shock the world. We've built this while they've been fighting and stammering and silencing. Our moment is coming, and it's only a matter of time before mainstream wakes up to our message of conversation instead of condescension. Our work is cut out for us. There's no doubt about it, but I've never been sure that we're on the right path.